Everyone, this video is a guide for using the plugin BuffBars in the game The Lord of the Rings Online. This is not a general how-to on using plugins or skins. It's only for setting up and using the plugin BuffBars. I set this video up at the request of a kinmate who wants to show some other kinmates how to use this plugin. Now, the BuffBars plugin is designed to show buffs and debuffs that are on your own character. It can also be used to show various effects on enemy units. We are not going to be covering that in this video. To show effects on enemy units, you have to also use the plugin Combat Analysis, and we're simply not going to be doing that in this video. This is going to be exclusively for setting up the standalone plugin BuffBars to show your own character's buffs and debuffs, and also some easy ways of using it so that you can not only see your buffs and debuffs, but also use it to remove debuffs that are placed on your character. Debuffs, by the way, are negative effects, and buffs are positive effects. So we are going to use this character that you're looking at right here. This character is named Limerick. Limerick originally started on the Treebeard server. He has always played at difficulty 3 or higher, often much higher, usually at maximum difficulty 9. With the server consolidation and transfers that went on during the early part of the year 2025, he moved over to the server Peregrine, which is where he is right now. I moved all my Treebeard characters over to Peregrine. Limerick is currently level 100. He is a lore master, and he is a yellow lore master. He has two different specs in yellow. One is focused more on personal damage for soloing, and the other is focused more on pure support for when he's in a group. We are going to be using his soloing DPS spec. It's still yellow though. I find that the yellow spec is really fun at high landscape difficulty, but we're not going to be discussing his spec very much. I'm going to show it to you very briefly just so you'll know what I'm doing when I'm doing it during the video. Again, this is primarily about setting up the plugin BuffBars. So, assuming you already have BuffBars downloaded and installed, which I am not going to cover in this video. This is not about how to download and install plugins. Assuming you have it downloaded and installed, the next thing you have to do when you get to the character screen is to go to the Manage Plugins button on the right-hand side of the screen. The Manage Plugins button is going to bring up what's called the Plugin Manager. And the Plugin Manager will show all of the plugins that you have successfully installed, and then you have to choose which plugins you wish to load for each character. Now, normally I have several plugins which load for all characters. However, to make this video, I removed all of my plugin settings so we could start from scratch. So I'm actually not going to load this for anyone. I could set this up just to load, for instance, just for Limerick. But I'm going to set it up to load for no characters at all, and I'm going to show you how to load a plugin while you're in the game. Normally, though, you'd want your plugins to load automatically, and for the most part, any plugins you have, if you have them, you want them loading for every character all the time. So normally you would choose all characters. For now, though, we are simply going to choose none. Let's get back to Limerick here. I accidentally clicked on a different character. So let's log Limerick into the game, and we'll get started. I parked Limerick in the skirmish camp, which is outside the south gate of Bree. This will take 30 seconds or so to load in, depending on how many other characters and players are running around outside the south gate of Bree at the moment. So we're just going to wait for that. Here we go. We are in the skirmish camp outside the south gate of Bree, and here is Limerick. And you'll notice that that there are no plugins running right now, but you may also notice that my UI is set up different than the default. For instance, I have my player's portrait frame over here. I have my target frame over here. And I have a number of other things moved into locations that may not be familiar to you, including how I have my skill bars set up. I have the skill bars that page set up here at the bottom in a group of 4. Page 0, this is bar 0, bar 1, bar 2, bar 3. Bar 4 and bar 5 are along the right-hand side. Those do not page. So you can see as I change pages from the primary page to the secondary page to the Warsteed page, bar 4 and bar 5 do not change in response to that. Bar 4 and bar 5 also do not change in response to changes in spec. I'm just going to show you briefly what my spec is. This is my soloing yellow spec. It focuses a little bit more on damage. Now, he's only level 100, so he doesn't have a full spec yet, but he has plenty of support skills still, which are great for high landscape difficulty because there's a lot of crowd control and buffing and debuffing you can do there. But he has a little bit of damage, the most important of which is Storm and Staff. I'm not really going to go into his spec very much. We took a look at it, and if you want to freeze frame and scan and look at that more carefully, you're welcome to do that, but I'm going to close this window now. Now, back to my UI. So things are moved around a little bit. If you like this UI, I have a link to a .layout file that you can load in, and if you want to load it after you download that .layout file, you place that into your documents / UI, documents / UI / layouts folder, and then you would simply load it while you're in the game with the / command /UI layout. I'm typing it here. Load, and in this case, I'm using the layout that I name after myself, so it's easy to remember. I have a number of different layouts. This is my primary layout, and there it is. Now, there are other perfectly fine layouts you can use, and whatever layout you're using, BuffBars will work with it. So let's take a look at BuffBars now. To load BuffBars, we are going to go to the main menu, and we're going to go to the system selection and go to the Plugin Manager. And the Plugin Manager is the same thing we saw at the character selection screen. I'm going to make this a little bit larger. Actually, I'm going to make it a lot larger. And we're going to look for BuffBars, and all we have to do to load BuffBars is double-click it. BuffBars is now loaded. And I'm just going to get rid of the Plugin Manager for a moment so you can see what it looks like by default. So here is the main BuffBars window, consisting of a whole bunch of different, call them strips, if you will. And you can see that these are all the different buffs that are on this character at the moment. This character has lightning charged, which is one of his skills. It makes his staff strike a little bit more powerful and a longer range, and changes the damage from physical to lightning. This shows you his difficulty. You can see lightning charged here. Here's the landscape difficulty here, and these are for various buffs from excuse me, from a couple of items that he's wearing, from some expansions that I had purchased, and you can see those same buffs here. Now, even before we do any configuration with the plugin at all, I want you to immediately recognize that it is a lot easier to simply glance at the screen, see that he has lightning charged 3 running. That means there's 3 charges of lightning charged on his staff, as opposed to 2, 1, or 0. And I don't have to look at the tiny little icon under his portrait, mouse over it, and look at the tooltip. So immediately, I think you can see the value of BuffBars, or at least one of the values of BuffBars, without us having to go through any configuration of the plugin whatsoever. Similarly, I could mouse over and see what difficulty I'm on, or I could just glance at the screen and see what difficulty I'm on. Now, as it turns out, most of these things we are not actually going to leave on the screen. As we configure the plugin, we are going to remove some of these things because we don't need to know that we are getting, for instance, the Gift of Gundabad. Now, the Gift of Gundabad in this case is an experience gain. I mean, that's on all the time. That's not really going to impact what I do in combat. Gift of Umbar, it's the same thing. It's another experience boost coming from one of these bonus items that I got from an expansion pack. And I don't need to know that I have that on during combat, so I will not show that in BuffBars after we get it configured properly. Difficulty 3, you might want to show that so you don't forget. I don't like showing it. There's no reason to see that in combat. Lightning charge is something we will want to see in combat, so we are going to be leaving that. But again, right away, you can see the value. All you have to do is glance at the screen. You can see what all your buffs are. Now, there's another buff that I don't have and I should have gotten before we started this. I'm going to get up on my mount here. And we're going to take a little ride through Bree, and we're going to pick up the VIP buffs. And the nice thing about picking up the VIP buffs with this character right now is that you'll have an opportunity to see a new buff appear on the BuffBars display. So we are riding through Bree, passing through the main central plaza near the mayor's office and the broker's office. Passing the crafting hall on the right, and here we are at the Boar Fountain, and we're going to talk to Wenda Cranesbill and pick up our VIP buffs.
Would you do something for me? How can I be of service?
VIP buffs, for those of you who are VIP, you're already familiar with those. It includes the subscriber's jug, which I'm going to right-click, and now my subscriber buffs are active. And now that if you look here, under my portrait, you can see this little heart-shaped icon. But just glancing at it, you may have no idea what that is. But if you look at BuffBars, it tells you right away. What is it? Subscriber buffs. Now, if you want to know exactly what the subscriber buffs are, you still have to mouse over the icon and to get the full tooltip. And that'll tell you it accelerates crafting time, prevents item wear from combat, crafting, and defeat. That's a really nice benefit for VIPs. But anyway, the nice thing about it, again, is that you can just glance at the BuffBars strip, and you can immediately see what it is, at least by name. So we don't need the subscriber jug anymore. Let's get rid of that. And this is the town services item. We're just going to drag down here. I actually still have one because when I transferred this character, he had it in his inventory, and during the transfers there was some kind of weird glitch that caused the subscriber town services items, if they were in your inventory during the transfer, to acquire some ridiculously long decay time. Normally the decay time is 14 days. You can see this one has 13 days and 23 hours left. This one has 39 months, so about 3¼ years left. So that is not the way that's supposed to work. Anyway, again, not important for this video. Let's move on. Back to BuffBars. We are going to go back to the main menu, which is down here. Clicking on the main menu, we're going to come up to System, which is up here at the top. We're going to come over here to Plugin Manager, and we're going to click on the Plugin Manager and bring the Plugin Manager back up. And we already have BuffBars loaded, which we did earlier, and we're going to go now to BuffBars Options. You can read the About part. It tells you how it works. It gives you links to additional instructions and that sort of thing. We're just going to go to the Options now. The General tab we're not going to spend a lot of time on. We're just going to ignore that for now. Notice that there is, however, a category in the General tab for Combat Analysis. Combat Analysis is a different plugin. If you have the Combat Analysis plugin loaded, BuffBars and Combat Analysis will send data to BuffBars, allowing you to track various effects on your enemy units. We are not going to be covering that in this video. Let's look at the other tabs. The Quick Slot tab. Now, the Quick Slot tab is something we are going to be addressing in this video. Quick Slot tab allows you to set up additional quick slots. Well, now, you might ask, what's a quick slot? If you're not familiar with, if you're new to the Lord of the Rings Online or just never heard that term before, a quick slot is the spot into which you place a skill or some other item. So, for instance, in this particular quick slot, I have the ability to summon my nature spirit. Let's do that. Whereas in this quick slot, down here in the lower left, I have the ability to use my lightning charged staff strike skill. So a quick slot is what other people might just call a button. So let's go back to BuffBars, Options. Here we go, we're on the quick slot. So this will allow you to add additional quick slots, and then you can place various things into those quick slots, allowing you to quickly and easily remove your debuffs. We are going to get to that, but not just yet. The next thing is effect windows. An effect window is what you see here. Each of these horizontal bars is an effect window. Now you might ask, why do we need so many different horizontal bars? Why can't I put them all in one place? Well, that is what an effect slider is for, and we will get to effect sliders, but we're going to focus first on the effect windows. Now, notice that the effect windows all show you the length of time that these buffs have been active since we logged in. Now that's not a very useful value to know, so we are going to be changing that. However, when you use a short-term buff, it will show you how much time is remaining on that buff. So let's use a short-term buff that is going to show on the effect window here. Let me see if I can find one. A short-term buff. Let me see. A short-term buff. Here we go. Here's a good short-term buff. Sign of Power Vigilance is going to put two buffs on me. One is going to give me extra morale, and the other one is going to give me some extra stealth detection. Now, we are going to look carefully at the BuffBars effect windows while I click on the Sign of Power Vigilance quick slot button. Let's do that. And you see that two new items just appeared on the on this display. The first one is Motivated. Motivated is the extra morale that you get from Sign of Power Vigilance. And unlike all these other useless count-ups, which we are certainly not going to need and we will change later, this is providing a very useful countdown. Motivated starts with a 20-minute duration, and it's now counting down, and we have about 19 minutes and 24 seconds left. The other buff that comes from a Sign of Power Vigilance is a buff which allows you to more easily detect enemy units that are in stealth. And Sign of Power Vigilance, that stealth detection buff, starts with a 5-minute cooldown, and as you can see, it now has about a 4-minute, 3-second cooldown remaining. This is where BuffBars is going to be really helpful for you, because some buffs are medium length, like these, and some are very short, they only last a few seconds. And those short-term buffs are where you're going to find BuffBars to be especially helpful. So let's continue. We need to bring the BuffBars, the plugin manager back up so we can look at the BuffBars options again. And we're back in the effect windows. Now the window that we're looking at is a group of strips, a group of horizontal strips, and the default name that that's given to that is BuffBars. Now you can call it anything you want. You can create a new one. You can remove this one and create one from scratch. The default bars are fine, and we're going to start with them, and we're just going to make changes to them to make them more useful. So, we're going to leave the window as BuffBars. Now, eventually, we're going to create more than one window, and you're going to see a name like BuffBars, which is this grouping here, and there'll be a second name in the window drop-down menu. But for now, there's only the one. So again, the name is BuffBars. We can change that name if we want. We're just going to leave it alone. It's perfectly fine. We want that enabled, so we leave that checked. And this is asking us what characters we want this specific grouping of bars to load for. Now, normally you want them to load for every character. And I would suggest that you set it up for all characters. If eventually you get you design specific setups that are only for a specific class or a very specific character of yours, then you can use it for only that one character. But generally speaking, you want to be able to set up BuffBars once and have it apply for all your characters. That's a lot easier. Show window refers to when the window will be shown. Let's click on this drop-down menu and see what our options are. We can select always. I like always. You can select only in combat, and that way the window will not show when you're not in combat, and that way it won't be in your way. Maybe you like, say, a more immersive images from your game while you're doing other things. Well, you can always set it up for only in combat. Oh, by the way, once you make a change, you have to go down to the bottom of the panel and select and click on the accept button. And you'll notice now that this set of BuffBars, these effect windows, are going to disappear as soon as I click the accept button because we are not currently in combat. Oh, they're gone. Okay. Something else just appeared. We'll ignore that for now. That is the effect slider, and let's just ignore that for now. So we're going to come back up to the top. I like it to show all the time. You see there are other options also, in addition to only out of combat, only when you're mounted, only on a war steed, only when not mounted. There's all kinds of different conditions you can set there. I prefer always. Let's go back to the accept button so that we get our effect windows back. Okay. Now the next thing is sorting. The sorting method, there are a number of different ways you can do that. One is by effect name. Now, at the moment, this is being sorted by, I believe it's being sorted by time remaining. Yes, it is. So by time remaining, and so the buff that is going to disappear first will be at the top. And if we look over here, we'll see Sign of Power Vigilance is about to disappear. It's at the top. Poof, it's gone. The next one that's going to disappear is Motivated. There's a lot of time left on Motivated. There's almost 15 minutes. But it's at the top because it has the shortest remaining duration. The rest of these buffs all have an unlimited duration, and the time we're seeing is the time they've been active. Kind of, again, a useless metric to be showing on your screen. But this is sorting by the amount of time they've been active since you've logged in. The other possibility is to use effect category. Now, effect category could mean, for instance, a buff, a debuff, a cooldown. Effect category can be a useful way of setting up the sort order of your effect windows, each of these horizontal strips. I normally don't use that, but I do use it in one case, and I might show that to you later in the video. You can also choose it to not sort at all, in which case they will sort by the order in which they are applied. I like them sorting by time remaining, so we're going to leave that as time remaining. Then there is something called direction. Now, direction means where do you want the effect windows to grow? Do you want them to grow upward, or do you want them to grow downward? Now, this is set to grow upward, ascending. If you prefer, you can have them grow downward. Now, let me explain what upward or downward means. We are going to close the options window for a moment, and we're going to come back to our main screen. This thing that appeared in the middle of the screen, this is the effect slider. This is showing because we have a temporary buff on us, the motivated buff, which is showing here. and anytime you have one of those, the effect slider will show unless you configure it to not show. We're just going to leave it where it is for now, and I'd like you to please just pay more attention to the effect windows over here first. So we are going to now unlock our UI. And for most American keyboards, by default, the LOTRO keybind for unlocking your UI is, on a Mac, it's Command \, and on a Windows computer, it's Alt \. I'm sorry, no, that's incorrect. It's Control / on both Mac and Windows. There we go. So now I have my UI unlocked, and you'll now see that you can you have all the different UI elements that are on the screen now appear, even though if they're not active in any way. So, for instance, the Fellowship Maneuver display is over here, and I could grab this and move it to another place if I wanted to. I don't want to do that right now, but you can move it anywhere you like. I'm going to move the BuffBars effect slider somewhere else. So let's see if we can grab that. There we go. Nope, that wasn't it. Let's just move that out of the way. Let's try again. Didn't get it. There we go. There's the BuffBars effect slider, and I am going to put that over here, right above my chat box. And now let's go back to the. That's just as much to get it out of our way as any other reason. It's also where I tend to leave it, but when I'm actually playing the game. So here, back to our BuffBars effect windows. You'll notice that I can drag that anywhere I want to put it. Now notice that there is a kind of a drag bar here, and the various horizontal bars, the effect windows, are below the drag bar. I'm just going to move that over here for now. Now, let's see what happens when I add another buff. Is it going to appear at the bottom, where it'll start getting in the way of my effect slider, and eventually, if it gets large enough, it'll start getting in the way of my chat box, something I don't want to do? Or is it going to grow upward? Let's find out. I'm just going to use Sign of Power Vigilance again. That'll refresh my motivated buff and also give me the Vigilance buff. Let's see what happens. So as you can see, it grew downward, and now it's kind of in the way of my slider. And eventually, if I add enough buffs, those are going to get in the way of my chat box. I don't want that to happen. Let's just close the. Let's just lock the UI again. I'm using Control / to do that. And we're going to go back into the Plugin Manager, the options, and the BuffBars options, and the effect windows. And now, instead of the fill order being top to bottom, we're going to have the fill order go from bottom to top. And please watch the effect windows as I change from top to bottom to bottom to top. And then click on the Accept button. Now, we'll close this panel. We are going to unlock the UI again. And now you can see, going from bottom to top, it grows upwards from the BuffBars drag bar. So I'm going to drag this down to here. And now, in fact, I'm going to drag it down a little bit further than that, about there. And now the BuffBars effect windows are going to start just above my effect slider and grow upwards. And you'll notice that I have essentially nothing above here. There are some things that could appear. You can see there's escort vitals that might appear here. It's rarely more than 1 or 2 escorts. There are sometimes as many as 6. When that happens, I do just grab my BuffBars and move them somewhere else temporarily so I can see all of the escort vitals. But it's rarely an issue. Escort vitals are NPCs that are they're not really members of your fellowship, but they are associated with your character briefly, and it's fairly rare. It usually only happens during quests or in certain instance encounters. Like I said, it's pretty rare, and there's usually only one or two, and those are at the top, and the effect windows will almost never grow up that high. So anyway, let's lock our UI again, Control \, and now you can see that we have the effect slider, which we're not going to talk about that much, but there it is, and then the effect windows growing upward from there. And no matter how many additional effects get added, they're all going to grow upward this way. They will never get in the way of the effect slider or my chat box down here. So let's go back again to our plugin manager, and we are going to go back to the BuffBars options. So I would suggest setting your fill order. Depending on where you want to put your BuffBars sliders, you need to choose either top to bottom or bottom to top. Where I like to put them, I choose bottom to top. Now remember, the direction ascending, descending relates to the sort order, not the order in which they are going to appear on your screen. So for instance, we can change the direction of sort from ascending to descending. Then we have to click the accept button. Notice what's going to happen here. The position of the sliders is not going to change. Excuse me, the position of the bars is not going to change. The position of the effect windows is not going to change. But the sort order will change. Let's click the accept button. So now you can see it's reversed. Sign of Power Vigilance is at the top. Lightning Charge is at the bottom. Whereas if we go back to the default sort order of ascending and click the accept button, now Sign of Power Vigilance is at the bottom. Okay, so that's just the sort order. It does not determine in which direction the bars will appear above or below the position widget. Okay. Next is bar order. Bar order means in what do you want to appear where. So the most important thing that you want to see is debuffs, and we are going to set debuffs to be at the top, and they already are. The next most important thing you want to see is your buffs, and they are already in position number 2. Then there's cooldowns, mob debuffs, and mob crowd control. These 2 items will only work if you also use the combat analysis plugin. We will not be bothering with that. But it will show both your own buffs and your cooldowns if you set it to do so. We're mainly going to be focusing in this video on the debuffs and the buffs. We're going to leave debuffs and buffs just as they are. Now, what does the bar order really mean? I can't show you precisely what these things mean because we don't have an easy way of putting a debuff on the character. We are going to do that later so I can demonstrate it to you. But if a debuff were put on my character, that is a negative effect, one that I might want to remove, it will appear in another one of these effect window strips, but it will appear above all of the buff strips in its own little grouping. So there's the grouping of buffs, which will be in position number 2, and then above that will be another grouping of effect window strips, and that would be your debuffs. And the nice thing about that is that it's almost impossible to not notice if you have a debuff, because they will appear in a separate group above all of your buffs, and it'll be right there on the screen. If you were relying on the default UI, it'll just be a little icon, and depending on how you have your UI set up, it'll just be another icon which will appear to the right of whatever is your rightmost existing buff icon, which means you will probably not notice it at all. Or if you have your UI set up differently, it will set up in a separate row above all of your buffs, but it's still just going to be a tiny icon, and you'd have to mouse over it to see what it is. If you get a debuff with BuffBars, you're going to see the name of it, and you'll immediately recognize what kind of debuff it is once you get used to those sorts of things, and you'll be able to do something about it. So let's go back to the panel again. So you can leave the bar order in its default mode. If you need to move them, you use these two buttons here, move up, move down. So for instance, debuffs are currently going to always appear above everything else, and you can choose to move that down if you wish. Or if you want to have it at the top again, you choose to move that up. I like leaving that at the default. You might prefer to have your debuffs at the bottom all the time, where they'll always be in more or less the same position, regardless of how many buffs you have on. But it's personal preference. Okay, now the next is effect triggers. Now remember, we are not going to be using cooldowns, debuffs, or crowd control, because those things are going to require combat analysis. We're just looking at debuffs and buffs for now. Now, debuffs and buffs, we definitely want to show all of them, so we are going to simply leave these as they are. The effect triggers simply means what is going to be showing in this group of effect windows. So we're going to leave that at its default, and we're going to scroll down here. Next, you have the option to set flashing. If something's about to expire, you can set the bar to flash. The flashing effect is useful because it'll tell you when something is very close to expiring. This is set by default for a flash time of 15. That's 15 seconds. So if something has only 15 seconds remaining, it will be flashing the entire time, and that will let you know you only have a few seconds remaining of that effect. I'm going to put up a very short-term buff on myself, and you will see what that flash looks like. Let's see. Here we go. Sign of Power Righteousness. Now, Sign of Power Righteousness has a 45-second duration. Let's trigger it. And here we see we have the temporary state immunity, which has only a 7-second duration. But if you look at that strip, you can see it's flashing blue and clear, then it disappears. So that's what Sign of Power Righteousness does. It gives you temporary state immunity. In other words, it makes you immune to crowd control for a short period of time. Okay, so that's sometimes useful, sometimes not. If you find flashing things on the screen distracting, you can turn that off. You can change the time simply by moving the slider. 15 seconds is a reasonable amount of time. If you don't like it, you can just turn it off. This is, again, purely about personal preference. You don't really have to, you can experiment with that and see what you prefer. Now, the next thing is the UI elements, the effect icon. Notice that there is an icon to the left of each of these strips. If you don't need to see that icon, you can click that off. Now, if I turn that off, I'm going to have to click the accept button afterwards for it to take effect. And now you can see all you have is a name. I like the effect icons because the effect icons match the little icons underneath your character portrait. So that means you can easily say, oh, well, what is that? Difficulty 3, Fearless. Oh, okay, there's the same icon, and now you can get the details about it by mousing over and looking at the tooltip. So I like to leave that on. Effect name, you can turn that off, and again, we're going to have to click the accept button. And now all you have is the icon. Now, if you're really familiar with the icons, that's great, but even though I still prefer having the effect name on the screen. The effect timer, you can turn the timer off. Now you might say, well, why would you want to turn the timer off? Isn't that what BuffBars is all about? Well, sure, but you could also look at the length of the bar, and that'll tell you how long it's going to last. All of these are infinite length. They are going to last forever, so that's why the bars never move. But you can see the motivated buff is slowly counting down, and the solid part of the bar is slowly moving, getting shorter and shorter. However, it's very useful to have the actual timers active, and so we're going to leave those timers active. Effect target. That would tell you who the target is. Now, that's disabled by default. That generally only applies to effects on enemy units and crowd control, which, again, we are not covering in this video. We're going to turn it on just so you can see what the difference is. We're going to click accept, and as you can see, there's no effect whatsoever because everything here applies only to yourself. We're only interested in buffs and debuffs on your own character. We're going to turn effect target back off so it's back to its default setting. Timer on effects with no duration. Now, no duration means it lasts forever. All of these effects that you see counting up have no duration. We don't care about that. We don't need to see those timers. So we're going to turn that off. Timers on effects with no duration, we're going to uncheck that, click the accept button, and now those timers are gone. But notice that the timer for motivated is still there, and it tells us how much time we have remaining on motivated. These timers don't matter because they don't actually have a timer, and counting up from the moment you logged in is not really useful. So we are going to leave that setting off. Timer format. This lets you set up various different formats. For literal is sometimes useful. That will tell you how many seconds remain, and if you like counting down in total seconds, that's an option you can use. You can use truncated. Truncated will give you minutes in terms of minutes and fractional amounts of minutes. 6.7 minutes. Frankly, I think the most useful for most people is the standard clock format, which is minutes, seconds. So we're going to leave it that way. Font size. You can change the font size. You can make it larger. It's easier to read that way. Can't make it too large, though, or you won't be able to see it all. Now you can also change, later on I'll show you, you can change the length and even the height of each of these bars, but for now we'll just leave that at default. So we're going to make this a little bit smaller so that we can see everything, but it's still a little bit larger than it was a moment ago. There you go. So it's a little bit larger, probably still too large for the current length of the strips. Yeah, you know what, we're just going to put it back to default. 12 pixels tall is fine. Okay. Next, this is where you can change the width and the height of the bars. The width of the bars means how long they're going to be. I like to make my bars the exact same length as the default length of the slider. So we're going to increase that a little bit. And we're going to have to experiment a little bit because remember, any changes you make here don't take effect until you click the accept button. Did I get it close? Not really. Let's make it a little bit larger. Maybe 350. I still didn't get it. Okay, let's bring it up to 450. That's probably going to be too large, but let's see. Yeah, that's too large. Okay, how about 425? Okay, we're getting there. I'm going to bring that down to 450. Yeah, let's make it 410. Close. 405. Very close. 400. Okay, there you go. That's as close as it needs to be. So now the width of my sliders is the same width as my width of my effect windows. I keep using the wrong terminology. I apologize. Is now the same width as my effect slider. So that just kind of looks nicer that way. Then there's the color. You can choose any color you like. I'm just going to leave that as at default. You can change a number of different colors. The color when it's flashing, the color of different kinds of debuffs, poisons, and diseases, and so forth. If you like different colors for those things, we are going to leave all of that at default for now. And you can and as you can see, you can change the colors in a lot of different ways. You can use this box here, which is a color picker, or you can use the RGB, the red, green, blue color picker, and even control the brightness using the alpha slider. So I'm just going to click the accept button, just in case I made a change and forgot to click the accept button before. Okay, so there's our sliders so far. Now, I mentioned before that there are a lot of effects here that we don't really need to track in combat. So we're going to eliminate some of these, but we don't do that in the Effect Windows panel. We do that later. Let's now go to Effect Sliders. Now, you may not even want the Effect Slider. I don't really like the Effect Slider very much. I personally find it to just get in the way. I do tend to leave it up on my screen, though, because when there's a very short-term buff, it makes it easier to track that very, very short-term buff. So the effect slider also, just like the effect windows, can be given a name. This one is given the name BuffBars by default. You can create additional sliders if you want. We're just going to leave this one slider. If you don't want to use the slider at all, you can click the remove button and it will be gone. We want these to load for all characters. You generally want to have one thing, one set of options set up for all your characters, and if you need to make specific changes for specific characters or classes, you can do that, but generally speaking, it's good for all characters. Show the slider, and then you have various options for when the slider will show. You can have it show all the time. Now remember, when we first logged in this character, the slider was not showing, because this, by default, it's only when the slider has effects that it's tracking. Right now it has an effect that it's tracking my motivated buff. You can have it show only when in combat. So if we select only in combat and then click the accept button, the slider will disappear. It's gone now. Some people like to have the slider right in the middle of their screen. Again, I find that really distracting. Sometimes I don't even like having the slider visible at all. But for the most part, I leave my slider on always. And that way, even when it's empty, it's not tracking anything, it's on my UI, and so I know that later on it's going to fill up with various things. Let's go on to the next set of options. Maximum time in seconds. What is the longest length of time it's going to track? Now this is set for 180 seconds, which is 3 minutes, which you can see here. Now that doesn't mean it won't track effects that are longer than 3 minutes. It's just that any effect that's longer than 3 minutes will all stack up here on the end of the slider, and only effects which are shorter than 3 minutes will be sliding down. Notice also that the effect slider, is not linear. 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, 10 seconds, 1 second. So the buff that it's tracking, as it starts to run out, is going to start moving faster and faster and faster across the slider until it's gone. Let's watch the motivated buff as it runs out during its last 30 seconds. As you can see, it is starting to accelerate as it moves from left to right, because the slider is on a kind of a logarithmic scale, I guess. That's probably completely incorrect, but in any case, it gets faster and faster as it goes across. It's moving very quickly now in its last few seconds, and in its last second, it's gone. Okay, so that buff is gone. My slider's still showing because I have it set to show always. However, as soon as a new buff comes on, let's re-establish that buff. It reappears. And so now you can see there's something here. You can see it's for 20 minutes, even though the maximum time is 3 minutes. The 20-minute buff is showing. There's also the shorter 5-minute buff. You can't see it because it's behind the 5-minute buff. This is one of the reasons I don't like the slider very much. Now, the larger that you make the maximum time, the more things will be spread out along that bar. So let's make it, let's see, the maximum time is now set for 10, I think that's 10 hours. We'll accept that. Yeah, so now you can see the slider is not going to be very useful. It's only going to track things in its last second. Technically it's 2 seconds of duration. So that's not really very helpful. Let's go back up. Now if you set the maximum time for something really short, like only... Oh, I'm sorry, I already did that. I set that for a very short time of only 10 seconds. If we set it for a very long time, 1800 seconds, that is 30 minutes. Okay, now it's behaving the way I described a second ago. I apologize for that. So now it's set for 30 minutes, and you can see the motivated buff, the morale buff, has 18 minutes left, so it's here on the slider, and this stealth detection buff has about 3.5 minutes left, so it's over here on the slider. This one is currently, looks like it's barely moving. This one you can actually see move from left to right a little bit. That might be more useful for you in some cases. You can set this for any time you like. Possibly the default setting will work for you, in which case you want to set it for the 3 minutes, which is 180 seconds. The sliders are mostly useful, again, if you're using them at all. The slider is mostly useful for tracking things that have a very short duration. So anything more than about 3 minutes is probably not really going to be terribly useful for you. Time compression. That's what's going on here, where we have these things moving very slowly when they're on the left-hand side. Then as they progress and count down, they get near zero, they start moving faster and faster. That's what's meant by time compression. We can change the time compression from the default of 0.35 to 1. And now you'll notice that this is a little bit different. Things are spread out a little bit more on the left-hand side. They're compressed more on the right-hand side. Everything now is linear with a setting of 1. Or you can set it for a very high compression of 0.01. And now you can see that the last second, which is not really going to help you very much, but only the last second takes up almost the entire slider, and everything else is just going to be packed over on the left-hand side, so they'll all be stacked up on top of each other. You can't really see them at all. So we're just going to go back to the default setting of 0.35. Oops. Just so that it's at its default again. Okay. So these are personal preferences. You can set that any way you like. Personally, I don't find the slider all that useful. I sometimes glance at it to see if something's about to run out of time, but you can just leave that however you like. You can even disable it. You can just uncheck the enabled box, you click accept, and the slider's gone. And if you want to bring it back, all you have to do is click on check the enabled box again. It'll come right back. Okay, now the next is effect triggers. Remember, we're not dealing with cooldowns, debuffs, or crowd control here, only debuffs and buffs. What do you want it to track? All debuffs, all buffs. There you go. You can delete things you don't want it to track. You can make one of these things more important than the other. We have debuffs at the top because debuffs are more important to track than your buffs. You want to know what debuffs you have on you at all times so you can remove them. So we're just going to leave these at their defaults. Next, UI elements. This is just like UI elements from the effect windows, and we're going to leave these all at default. We're going to leave it in clock mode, 12 pixels tall. Now, the one thing that I like to do, and this, again, this is personal preference, I like to set the slider orientation to go right to left instead of left to right. And now things start on the right-hand side and count down to the left. And the reason I do that is because since I have them stacked, have the effect windows stacked on top of the effect slider, it behaves in the same direction, if you will. The effect windows, as they count down, the dark area gets shorter. In other words, it seems to move from right to left, and now the effect slider will move from right to left as it counts down. It just feels better to me. That's why I have it that way. You obviously can set it up any way you like, and especially if you don't stack it up with your effect sliders the way I do, you might want it to work a different way. You can also orient it vertically if you'd rather have it vertical instead of horizontal. I'll just do that for a moment so you can see what that looks like. I'll set that top to bottom. That'll be a vertical orientation, and as you can see, it just appeared over here. You can unlock your UI with Control / and you can move that anywhere you want. But you can have it set horizontally or vertically. You can have the buffs go from left to right, right to left, up or down. I prefer right to left. So I'm going to put it back where it was. And now we're going to continue. You can change the width. That is the width of the slider using this widget in the control panel. You can set the height of the slider using this widget in the control panel. I'm just going to change the height for a moment so you can see what the height difference will make for you. If you want to make it the whole thing more visible, you can make it larger. Of course, we wouldn't want it that way in that position. We might want to move it to a different spot. But making it both wider and taller can be useful if you want to be able to track your buffs on the slider more easily. So let's just see if we can set that back to the default position. I believe that was 400, right? Yes, and I don't remember what this was at all. Oh my goodness, I don't remember. It was more than 30. It was probably 40. Let's see. Yeah, that looks about right. Okay, so good enough for now. Next, you can change the colors again, and you can use the color picker here. You can use the RGB picker, and that's all there is to setting up the sliders. And again, you can set up multiple sliders to do different things if you wish by creating a new slider. We're not going to do that at this time. So the next thing we want to do is go to the General tab. Now the General tab gives you no, I'm sorry. That was incorrect. We're going to close the panel for now. Now, remember I mentioned in the beginning that we're tracking a bunch of things here we do not need to track. You can track whatever you like. You can track 100 things at a time, and if you want to do that, you go right ahead. But for the most part, you only want to track things that are important in combat. Something like this motivated buff is important, so we will want to leave that. Your subscriber buffs. Now, if you forget to get your subscriber buffs every 2 weeks, and because you don't notice it that it's under your portrait, maybe you want to leave that. But for me, I find that I don't need to have the subscriber buff showing on my buff bars. I like to have them be combat effects only. So what I'm going to do now is mouse over subscriber buffs and right click, and now I get this drop down menu, and it's asking me to do several different things. First is options. Now, if I just click on options, we're going to get the options panel, which we were looking at before. Or I can add trigger. Now that's going to take us. Oops, that should have taken us back to the options panel. It did not. Okay, so we're not going to use add trigger. Let's just go to blacklist because that's the important part here. I'm not sure why add trigger didn't do anything. I'll figure that out, and I'll try to get back to you on that. In any case, blacklist is the option we're looking for now. I don't want to track subscriber buffs. Subscriber buffs is not something I need to see in combat, so I'm going to add that to the blacklist, and poof, it's gone. That means anytime I have subscriber buffs active, it is not going to show in this grouping of buff bar effect windows. It's still there. The buff didn't disappear, it's simply not being tracked. And I don't need to see this because it is also something I don't need in combat. This is also something I don't need to see in combat. That's something I don't need to see in combat. You may want to have your difficulty showing so that you don't forget when your difficulty, landscape difficulty is active. Landscape difficulty does get automatically disabled under certain circumstances, and maybe you will forget that you have it active when you come out of those conditions where it's inactive, such as in a housing area. But again, it's not something you need to see in combat, so I'm going to blacklist it because I don't need to see it. Now, these other two things I do want to see. As I use my lightning charge staff strike skill, that number is going to count down from 3 to 2 to 1 to 0. It's going to then build back up from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3. So I do want to track that. Even though it has no timer, I want to see how many charges I have. And something like the motivated buff, I also want to see. So I'm not going to turn those off. There are a lot of other things you might want to turn off as well. For instance, let's take a ride into Bree and go to the crafting hall. And we're going to take a look at some other buffs that we might get. Oh, you know, I don't think we have to go all the way to the crafting hall. I think we can just ride right over here. Yep, here's an oven. Ah, see, now that we're close to the oven, you may notice that we just got a couple of other buffs pop up. It's telling us, if we look under our portrait, It's telling us that we have, that's not it, that's not it, there they are. Okay, it's telling us that we have the oven buff, which means we can use the oven for cooking, and we have the superior oven buff, which means that we can use the oven to cook things that require a superior oven instead of a plain old oven. We are also under the effect of the campfire buff, which also allows you to do various things that require a campfire. That's what this object here in the game is doing for us. Now, we don't need to see that appearing on BuffBars because they don't matter in combat, so we're going to blacklist them. Blacklist, blacklist, blacklist. We don't need to see any of that in combat. So you see how much that cleans up the effect sliders, so we're only seeing the things we need to see. Now, the only downside to this is that you have to add all of these things individually. You can't just, say, oh, don't show me things I don't need to see. So here we are again. We just went to a study, and the study is giving us the study and the superior study effect. Again, we don't ever want to see these in combat, so we are going to blacklist both of these things. So as you go through the game, and you're just playing, and you might see some things pop up in BuffBars, and you might say to yourself, I do not ever want to see that again. All you have to do is go to the effect window horizontal bar, right-click it, and choose Blacklist. Now, I'm not going to do that for the Lightning Charge Staff Strike, because I do want to see that, but it's very, very simple to do. Now, what happens if you are if you've blacklisted something by mistake? It's really easy to correct. Let me just put him back here in camp, and we will get back to our options panel. I'm going to dismiss my pet because he is just very bright and in the way. There we go. Okay, so let's go back to the options panel for BuffBars. And we know we can get there from a right-click on the bars. I choose to go through the System Plugin Manager panel. So now we've added things to our blacklist. So now we have to find where things have been added to the blacklist. So here we are back in Effect Windows, and you'll notice that Effect Triggers has had several things added to it. We now have Superior Study, parentheses, Blacklist, Study, parentheses, Blacklist. All these specific things that weren't here before. All of these individually added blacklist items will be shown under Effect Triggers with the parenthetical statement Blacklist. If you've accidentally added something to the blacklist, you can remove it. Let's do that. Let's say I accidentally added the motivated buff to my blacklist. Oh no, I want to track motivated. What do I do? Well, it's really simple. You bring up the plugin manager, you go to BuffBars, you go to Options, you go to Effect Windows, you go to Effect Triggers, and you find the motivated buff, and the last one you added will always be on top. You find the motivated buff, you click once on it, and you delete it. You are not deleting motivated from the list of things that will be tracked by BuffBars. You're deleting the blacklist, in other words, the fact that it won't track it from BuffBars. So let's delete that, and then we have to click the Accept button, and poof, motivated came right back. So don't worry if you accidentally add something to the blacklist, you can always get it back. So that's the most basic part of BuffBars, tracking your own buffs. You will also be able to track debuffs with that. I can't easily show that to you here. We are going to have to go into an instance or something to do it, and we are going to do that in a moment. You know what? Let's not do it in a moment. Let's do it now. I'm going to bring my pet back. We are going to bring up the instance finder, and we're going to go to one of my very favorite instances, the let's go to the library at Tamradane. I'm going to set the level a little bit lower because I don't want to have terribly intense combat here, but I do want to be able to have the monsters hit me so that you can see various effects. This is a 3-player instance. Since a 3-player instance, my landscape difficulty setting is going to be automatically disabled as soon as I enter. Let's launch this instance.
The library at Tharmirdine once held
Okay,
much
so
of the
I know
knowledge
that
of the
the
early
narrator
ages
voice is talking.
and
I'm gonna
withstood
let
the
that
brunt
finish
of
before I
Sauron's
continue
attack
with my
against
instructions.
Eregion. Though much of the surviving lore was carried away by Elrond Half-Elven, the force of Angmar now seeks the remnants.
Okay, so here we are in the instance. Now this is one of those instances that has a delving stone. It can be used by max level characters to apply delving modifiers. Until we walk past the delving stone, no mobs are going to spawn in. So I'm going to walk past the delving stone, then walk right back. They'll spawn in just a second or two now. There they are. Okay, so all the mobs are in there, and they are teal colored. Aquamarine colored perhaps, because they are about 5 levels below me. I'm level 100, they are level 95. Okay, so I am going to get one of these things to put a debuff on me. To do that, I'm going to kill all of them except for one. So I'm going to use a crowd control effect on that one, and all the rest of them will run to me. Some lovely lag. Okay, here they come. And I'm going to kill all these guys. Okay. So these guys are all dead. And now we're going to wait for this guy's crowd control to break. He's going to run to me, and I'm just going to let him hit me. And when he hits me, he's eventually going to apply a debuff, and you'll be able to see it. You'll notice also that I got another buff, stored power. I'm not going to explain it. It's a lore master thing. Okay, so here's this guy. Oh, he's hitting my pet. I have to get rid of the pet. I want him to hit me. Okay, so now he's hitting me. This is a very weak mob, and he is 5 levels lower. He's not going to hurt me too bad, but eventually he's going to apply a debuff to me. I hope. That's the whole point of doing this. Come on, you little bugger. Debuff me. I'm going to heal myself here because I am starting to take some damage. You'll notice that when I applied the heal, we got water lore. Ah, here we go, finally. Here's the debuff. Notice that the debuff appeared above all the debuffs. It's colored green because it's a poison. It tells me exactly what it is, and it tells me how long it's going to last. Now that I see these things, I can remove that debuff using my debuff removal skill, which in the case of the Lore Master's Knowledge of Cures, I'm going to do that. And the debuff is gone. Now, if I had to rely only on what appears underneath my panel, wait until he debuffs me again. I'm going to keep healing myself a little bit because I don't want him killing me, obviously. I'm also going to reapply my motivated buff because that's about to drop off. Come on, debuff me. You can do it. I have faith in you. Let's get another heal going. Oh, come on. Yeah, maybe I should have kept the whole group of them, because with the whole group of them, they would have applied lots and lots of debuffs to me, but they also probably would have killed me if I just stood here and let them do it. Come on, you little bugger. Debuff me. Gotta heal myself a little more. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry, gentle viewer, that you have to wait for this silly creature to apply a debuff to me. He'll do it eventually, as he did before. Still waiting. Alright, well, let's get rid of this guy. He's just annoying me now. We're gonna have to get a debuff from something else. We're gonna kill these guys because they really are just in the way now. Let's get rid of this whole pack. I'm gonna pull these guys with, no, that's the wrong thing. What am I even doing? Whatever. Okay, here they come. They're all coming. Okay, so I'm gonna just take the damage for a minute so you can see what's going on. I have a whole bunch of debuffs on me now. Now notice I have my UI set up so that the buffs do show on a separate row, so they're not impossible to note. But then if you want to see what it is, you have to, in the middle of combat, while you're running around and trying to click things or move yourself around, you have to mouse over that to see what that is. Oh, that's ridiculous. And that's where BuffBars really shines. You just have to glance at the screen to see exactly what's debuffing you. You know what kind of debuff it is, and you can use your buff removal skill if you want to. Alright, let's get rid of these guys. Gonna heal myself a little bit. There we go. Okay. So let's get rid of the pet because he's really bright. I don't want him in my face the whole time. Okay, so I think that actually did the job. You saw the difference. You either get a couple of tiny little icons that you have to mouse over to find out what's going on, or you get nice icons appearing in your screen with explanations and timers, and you see exactly what is being applied to you. So that's really useful. But now I'm going to show you something that's even more useful than that. Let's go back to the BuffBars panel, the BuffBars Plugin Manager panel. This time, we're going to go back to Effect Windows, and we are going to create another set of Effect Windows, new Effect Windows. And we're going to call it, I'm just going to call it, that one was BuffBars, I'm just going to call this BuffBars 2. BuffBars 2. Okay. And let's see where that appeared, because we want to get it. Oh, okay, there it is. So we don't want the BuffBars 2 group to do the exact same thing the other one did. We want it to do something different. So let's just leave it where it is for now. We're going to move it in a moment. But let's have it do something completely different. Again, we can set this for all characters. We can also have in this case, we're only going to have the window show when we're in combat, so only while in combat. Now, if I click the accept button, that's going to disappear, and I don't want it to disappear yet, so I'm not going to click the accept button yet. The time remaining is still okay, direction ascending is still okay. We're going to have this go from bottom to top, just as we did for the other set. And in this case, we're also going to leave debuffs on the top, because we are going to use the second set of bars for debuffs only. Since we're using it for debuffs only, we're going to come down to effect triggers, and we are going to delete all mob crowd control, all mob debuffs, all cooldowns, all buffs, and all we're going to show is debuffs. Now, we could also change this. We're going to delete this one, and we're going to add something different. So we are going to look at the all curable debuffs template for this effect trigger. Now, the reason we want all curable debuffs is because for this set of bars, we only want to see something that we can do something about. Sometimes you'll be affected by a debuff that you cannot remove. It's good to know when that happens, and we will see that still in our primary BuffBars effect window group. But for the second set of BuffBars effect window groups, we only want to see what we can remove. And so we're using all curable debuffs only. So I just selected from the template all curable debuffs, and all I'm going to do now is click the accept button. That is now in the effect triggers. I'm going to leave pretty much everything else at its default. All that stuff, yep. I want to leave that where it is. I want to leave all that stuff where it is. Okay, so now we're going to click accept. Now this is going to disappear. This is going to disappear when I click the accept button, because now all the options that I just chose are applied. Let's get rid of the panel for a moment. We're going to unlock the UI. Here is BuffBars 2, and we are going to drag that somewhere else. And I'm going to drag that right into the middle of my screen. I want that in the middle of my screen because when I get affected by a debuff that I can remove, I want to know about it immediately. So I just drag that to the middle of my screen. And notice that when I'm not in combat, it's not going to show at all. Let's bring the panel back up, the options panel, that is. And we're going to look at BuffBars 2 again. So remember what we did. We just gave it a different name, and we made sure it was set for all characters. We're showing now. Oh, you know, an even better way than only in combat. Yeah, actually, only in combat. That's fine. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll leave it as only in combat. Time remaining and all the other stuff can be left at default. I like to set it from bottom to top so that that grows upwards rather than downwards. And all we're setting up here is all curable debuffs. Remember how we did that? We deleted everything in the effect trigger section. We added a new effect trigger, and we chose the template all curable debuffs, which is what you see here, all curable debuffs. Okay. So we are going to get affected by a bunch of debuffs again, and you are going to see them appear both here in our BuffBars group and also here in our BuffBars 2 group. But notice the BuffBars 2 group isn't even visible. It's only going to show when there's something, when there is a curable debuff on your character. So let's pull one of these guys. That's right, we're getting a whole group. That's good, because this whole group is going to... I'm just going to heal myself real quick. There we go. So there's the poison. And notice that this is showing that these poisons I can cure. They will only appear here in the BuffBars 2 group if I'm able to remove them. If I weren't able to remove them, they would still appear in the BuffBars 1 group, so I'd know they were there. But they would not appear in the BuffBars 2 group to alert me that I have something on me that I can remove. So let's remove those debuffs now. And notice they have disappeared from both groups. And we're going to kill these guys now because they are annoying. Okay. So that is a really useful way of setting up your BuffBars. Setting up a second group in a very visible location, somewhere right in the center of your screen where your eye is going to be all the time, so that when you have to deal with something, it pops up right in your face and you know you need to do something about it. Once again, it'll also appear in the BuffBars 1 group, but it'll show all your debuffs, including ones that you cannot remove. It's still important to know those are there, but if you can't remove them, you can't do anything about it. The ones that will appear in the center, if we set it up the way I showed you, will appear only if you can remove them. Okay, so let's get out of this instance. We do that by right-clicking our portrait and choosing Leave Instance. This will take about 10 seconds, so we'll just wait for that to complete. And we'll be back in the skirmish camp outside the south gate of Bree. Okay, so, oh, you know, I just noticed this thing. I should have pointed this out to you right in the beginning. You see this icon that's in the center of the screen near the near the character's head? Let's get the character's head out of the way. See this icon in the center of the screen? I don't know how to describe that. It is what it is. If you click that, it'll make all your BuffBars disappear. If you click it again, it'll make all your BuffBars reappear. So if you want to take screenshots or you just want it out of your face temporarily, you can click on that icon and get it out of your way. This is not a good location for this icon. You do not want it here. A much better location, let's unlock our UI. A much better location is like over here somewhere. I'm just going to drag it over here for now. You put it wherever you want. Maybe you want it in the corner somewhere, upper right, lower right, somewhere else. I'm just going to put it here. I think that's actually where I normally put it. I think it is. Okay, now we'll lock our UI again with Control \. And so there it is, and you can make all the BuffBars disappear if they're in your way. You might want that in the corner somewhere. I think that is where I usually leave it, though. Yeah, that is where I usually leave it. Okay, so all that is a toggle. You can also right-click it, and you can get at the options panel without having to go through the main menu and the plugin manager. You'll be sent directly to the plugin manager and straight to the BuffBars options. Okay, so I apologize. I somehow didn't even see it on the screen until just now, and I should have pointed that out to you right away. Okay, so there's one more thing that I'm going to show you how to set up in this video, and that's going to be your BuffBars quick slots. Now let's unlock the UI with Control \\. BuffBars quick slots start out by default right here in the center of the screen. That's perfectly fine, but I like to drag them down. Now, to be honest with you, I actually don't use the BuffBars quick slots. I prefer to have my debuff removal items, whether they're potions or skill, on my normal bars where I'm used to having them, and then when I see a debuff pop up on my BuffBars 2 bar, I know that I have to use something to remove it. You might, however, get a lot of value out of BuffBars quick slots. I know a lot of people do. And possibly if I had gotten so accustomed to doing it a different way, I'd be getting more use out of it as well. The BuffBars quick slots really are tremendously helpful. I'm going to show you exactly how they work. Now remember, a quick slot basically just means a button. You can put whatever you want into a normal quick slot button. You can put a skill, an item, a mount, a pet, any number of different things. The BuffBars quick slot buttons are a little bit different. You can only put certain things in them that will allow you to remove a negative effect, remove a debuff. Let's lock the UI. Control \\. And now let's go, we'll use this icon, and we're going to go directly to the options. And we're now going to go to the quick slot tab. So there's one quick slot tab right now, and that we should only need one, and it's called quick slots. We're not going to bother changing the name or anything like that. We can leave that. We will leave it as enabled. Now I play with it disabled because I don't need it, but if you like it, leave it enabled. And then load for. Normally I would suggest setting this up for all characters. However, in the case of the quick slot bar, you may need to set it up in a character specific method. And the reason for that is because all of your characters will have a different debuff removal skill. For instance, if it's a lore master, you'll have knowledge of cures. It'll be different for a champion. It'll be different for a hunter. It'll be different for every character class. So you might want to have this load only for a specific character. That's how I'm going to set this one up, to load only for this one character. You could set it up for all characters, especially if you're not going to have it, not going to apply your class-specific skill. If you're only going to be using potions, you could set it up for all characters. But let's set it up for character-specific in this case. Show the bar. Do you want the quick slot bar to show? Again, you have options here. I'm going to set it up for always. And I'm going to click accept. I don't think that actually changes whether or not it shows. Yeah, it doesn't. You actually have to put something in it first. So let's just go back to the options panel again. Okay, so now here are the different triggers that you set up. So you have the ability to, excuse me, let me back up. You have different categories of debuff. There are diseases, fears, poisons, and wounds. Now, the next two, morale and power, are not debuffs. This is set up so that you can use a morale potion to increase your morale when it's low, or a power potion to increase your power when it's low. You can set different triggers for that, so that if let's say your morale drops below 50%, that's when the quick slot will appear, and that will cue you to click on it in order to use the morale potion. Or if your power drops below 30%, you can set it up that way so that the power potion will appear in that BuffBars quick slot only when you need it to add some power. Okay, so let's do these one at a time. Let's start with disease. Now notice that it even tells you disease, parenthetical comment, edit to set the shortcut. So let's set it up. We're going to click the edit button. So the only time that this quick slot button will appear is when there is a curable disease. we don't need to change anything here. And notice that most of it is grayed out. We're not even able to change those things. So that's perfectly fine. We don't need to change anything with that. We can click cancel or accept. It'll be the same thing regardless. Now, fear, poison, and wound, they're all going to be the same. We can edit it if we wish. Curable fear. Next one is going to say curable poison. And the next one is going to be curable wound. Now you can get different cure potions from NPCs in towns, or you can use fancy cure potions like this one, which will remove wounds, fears, poisons, or pretty much any kind of debuff. Not absolutely any kind, but most kinds of debuffs, regardless of what they are, with a single click. These I get from free from Hobbit Gifts. Although I believe it's also possible to buy them in the store. I've never bought them from the store. I have so many from Hobbit Gifts, I doubt I'm ever going to run out of them. It's also important, though, to have the potions, the cure potions that you can get from the vendors. Even if you have these, you need to have the cure potions from the vendors. They are on different cooldowns, and if you only have one set up, you're not going to have the other available to use when the first is on cooldown. So anyway, all of these first four are set up for you by default, and there's nothing to really configure. Morale, we're going to edit that one. And as you can see, this is triggers when you reach a certain morale level. It says 30. I'm going to say, let's be more cautious. Let's say that we want this to trigger when our morale goes under 50, or I should say reaches the 50% level. And power is less important. Maybe we only want that one to trigger at the 30% level. Oh, okay. Well, that's already set up for you by default at 30%. Okay. So we're now going to click the accept button. Now this character, for one reason or another, doesn't have any of those store-bought cure potions, and I do want to have some, so I'm going to go get them. Let's go get some of those NPC cure potions. Now, scholars can make them as well. Is there one of those NPCs here? Let's see. No, I don't see one here. Supplier. No, supplier doesn't have that kind of stuff. That's for crafting. Yeah, I know there's one in town center near the boar fountain, so let's go there. Scholars can make cure potions. So if you want to save a little cash and you have the materials, you can certainly ask your friendly neighborhood scholar to make them for you. Or you can purchase them off the auction house, or make them yourself if you have a scholar crafter. However, they are also purchasable at a number of different NPCs, such as the healer NPC. Let's look at the healer
Greetings.
NPC. My character is level 100. And so we have to find a set of cure potions that are good for level 100. Now I could use these Anthelus cure potions, these Anthelus level ones. I'm just going to lock the tooltip by hitting the H button so we can look at it while I still move the mouse around. So notice that this has a maximum effect of level 110. This character is only level 100. There's no way he's going to run into a level 111 effect. However, these do cost 17 silver each, so I might want to find something that's a little bit less expensive, because he's not likely to run into anything that's, let's say, over level 105. So if we don't need Anthelus, maybe we could use something a little less effective. Let's see, that's level 55. This is the one thing that's a little annoying about this. You have to scroll and scroll and scroll, and mouse over and look at the effect levels, and eventually you'll find what you're looking for. That's only 80. East Eminent, that's 90. Oh, maybe we're getting close. Greater, that's only 30. Gun to bed, that's very high. We don't need to pay that much. I don't know. I know I'm getting picky about the cost, but it's no reason for you to get something that's higher than you need. Ironfold, 130. Oh my goodness. Because I'm not finding the one I need. That's 120 right now. That's 140. It's 40. Oh goodness. Simple is going to be very low. Yep, that's only 20. Well, I wish they had this in order. Oh, here we go. I can sort. Ah, silly me. By price. Sort from low to high. There we go. Sorry, I wasted your time. Okay, so let's, here we go, West End it. Maximum strength of 100, that's too low. Ah, and it figures. We're going to be buying the Amphilis after all. Okay, so let's get a few of these. I'm not going to get hundreds of them or 50 of them. I'm going to get like 5 of each. So Amphilis, the milk thistle is for poison. Let's get 5. I'm going to open my inventory so you can see them going into my inventory. All right, and this one is for poison. That one was for, oh, that's for poison also. Okay, that's weird. Why am I milk thistle draft and stuff? Oh, I remember now. Okay, so the milk thistle draft, the drafts I should say, only work on yourself. The salves will work on yourself or a target. The cost is the same, so why in the world would you take one that only works on yourself if you can get one that works only on the target, that will work on yourself or your target? Well, there are a couple of reasons why you might want it to affect both yourself or your target. Let's say you want to help out a person who is taking a lot of debuffs, but you're not, because the tank might be taking all the hits and you're not taking any hits, you're not getting debuffed. Then you would want the Saab version. Or let's say you're more concerned about removing only your own debuffs and you don't want to get messed up by using it on someone else mistakenly, because if you use it on someone else, it's going to go on cooldown and you're not going to be able to use it on yourself again right away. So that's why the draft version is sometimes the better choice. I'm going to take the draft version in every case here. Although, again, if you're the healer, you might want the Saab version. If you want the flexibility, you might want the Saab version. If you have the discipline to not be clicked through onto another target while you're using these things, that's great. I'm just going to take the draft version in every case. Okay, the next one, the Linestad draft, is for diseases. I'm going to take 5 of those as well. Can't believe I didn't have these in my inventory already. Next is the Cornweath Salve, and that's going to be for fear effects. And the last one is the Healing Salve, which is for wound effects. Now don't be confused. A healing potion is for removing wounds. It is not for morale. Morale requires morale potions. Let's take 5 of those as well. Okay, so we have the potions, and we're going to run back. We're going to run back to the camp. So the next thing we're going to do is set those up in the appropriate quick slots of the BuffBars quick slot bar. And we'll do that as soon as we get back to camp. Sometimes I wonder why I like running back to camp. It's just a habit at this point, I suppose, but it also tends to be a little less busy than the center of Bree, and fewer people running around, and I just get less lag there. Of course, on this server at this time of day, doing this in the morning, it's very unlikely we get lag anyway. Okay, so here we have our 4 different curing potions. I also have this battle potion of restoration that I might set up, and there's also my skill that I might set up. But the most important things we want to set up are these 4 curing potions. So the next thing we need to do is to unlock our quick slot bars. Now you can do that using the options UI settings panel, but we're not going to do that. There is a simple key binding for that. On a Mac, it is Command backslash. On a Windows machine, it is Alt backslash. And just to show you, before I unlock, if I try dragging and moving one of these buttons, it's not going to move. See how it's not moving? I'm mousing over it, I'm clicking on it, I'm holding the click, and I'm trying to drag it. It is not moving. Now I'm going to unlock it with, I'm using a Mac, so for me it's Command backslash. And now I'm going to mouse over, click and hold, and now you can see I can drag it anywhere I want to drag it. So now we're going to go back to our inventory. We're going to take one of these things and we're going to drop it into the quick slot. Except first I have to make the quick slot visible, which I did not do before. So we're going to go to the BuffBars quick button, right click, go to options. And now we have to enable the quick slot so that we can we're going to edit the quick slot so that we have the right thing in there. So oh boy. Okay. Yep, there we go. Okay. So let's just do this in order here. Disease, fear, poison, wound. That's poison. Disease, fear, poison, wound. Okay, so now these are in my inventory in the same order that they appear as effect triggers. Now remember, you can change the order of these anyway, to be any way you like. If you want fear to be on the far left, just move fear up. And now that's going to be at the top of the list, which will appear on the far left of the bar. But we're just going to put it back to defaults. You can set yours up any way you like. I'm just going to leave these at default for now. So to set these up, we're going to set up disease. Click on Edit. Now notice that here it's all set up for you with one exception. Under Quick Slot, there is a box here, a Quick Slot button, and it says Response. That means, what do you want to happen when you are hit with the disease? Well, you want it to show you the thing you use to cure diseases. And now we're going to click Accept. Now we're going to do the same thing with fear. This is our fear removal. Going to drag that over. Poison. Going to drag that over. Wound. Going to drag that over. Morale. I have morale potions here. I have a lot of other morale potions too. We're going to use our regular, whatever his regular morale potions are right now. And power. He also has some power potions. As a floor master, he'd probably never ever need to use those, but there they are. Okay. So now that's all set up to trigger when he needs to use them, but only when he needs to use them. Now, I want to point out that I can add another effect trigger for the Battle Potion of Restoration. I can add another effect trigger for my Knowledge of Cures. Let's do that now. We're going to add, let's see. Let's add another curable disease. Actually, let's see if I can do custom and see if I can set it up for everything. Trigger effect. No, it's not going to work. Okay, yeah, we're going to have to do it individually. Okay, so we're going to do curable disease again. We're going to call this one disease. Oh, let's see, it's not letting me set it up with a different name. Okay, so again, curable disease. And we are going to set this one up with Knowledge of Cures. So we're going to set that up for that quick slot. Except I'm not going to pull it off my bars. I'm going to go to my skill panel. I'm going to find Knowledge of Cures, which is right here. And I'm going to drag that to the quick slot. So now Knowledge of Cures is there. Let's get rid of that. We're going to accept. And now notice there are two options for curing disease. Now, I want the skill option to be at the very top, because that would be the first thing I would probably use before I use a consumable item that can run out. Now, I can do the same thing for fear. I can add a new fear, a new curable fear. Bring up my skill panel, drag in Knowledge of Cures, accept. And now I'm going to add a new point. And I have to bring that up near the top. I'm ready to go. What did I do with it? I deleted it by mistake. I apologize. Okay, so let's do that again. this is fear, curable fear, knowledge of cures. Okay, I'm not going to continue with this. I'm just going to take knowledge of cures and the fear removal there, bring it up near the top so you can see it. Okay, and the last thing I'm going to add is my Battle Potion of Restoration. I would also set that up for all of the different removals. And I could also set up the morale trigger to also show my greater potions of morale, which are a percentage heal over time, and a number of other different things you can do. You know what? I'm actually going to stop here because I think that's enough of an example, and I'm not going to actually set all those up. That'll take quite a while to do, but I do recommend you do it. So here's what we're going to do now. We are going to go back into an instance. I'm going to allow myself to get debuffed, and you will again see, and then you will see how the quick slot bar shows with only the item that I need to remove that specific debuff, and with nothing else. Right now, if I unlock my UI, you can see the BuffBars quick slot bar, and you can see that I have all these individual potion removal, all these individual cure potions. I have a couple of things that are used for removal of again, I think it was Wound and Fear, wasn't it? Whatever it was, which use my skill. And then here are the 2 healing potions, the Morale Healing Potion, the Power Healing Potion. Now, when this bar pops up in combat, it's not going to pop up looking like this. The only thing that's going to pop up is the thing you need at that moment. So let's just lock the UI again with the Control /, get into an instance, and we'll take a look at that. Instance. Well, I know we're going to go back to the library. It's possible it's probably going to be the same instance. Let's find out. We'll just walk. No, it's a new instance. That's actually a good thing. So let's get these guys attacking me, and you will see how this works. So I'm just going to throw a debuff at them, just so they'll run at me. Here they come. Okay, so we are now waiting for them. Here we go. Here's a debuff. Notice that well, I'm gonna have to kill myself a little bit, so let's do that. Notice that the BuffBars group. Oh man, they really hit me hard. I have to do something about this. The poison here in this instance is actually very strong. Okay, so I'm gonna remove that using the guys. I have to kill these. I have to kill these things. I'm sorry. I have to kill them. So they're dead, but we still have the poisons running, and so I want you to notice that the BuffBars quick slot popped up, but only the thing that I need to remove poisons. All those others didn't pop up. If I see that, I know that I need to remove it. Now, let's use that to remove that poison. All I have to do is click on it. Click, poison's gone. It's not showing under my portrait either. It's not just because the buff bar isn't working, it's because the poison was actually removed. So let's do that again. Okay, here come the guys. Now, this time, they'll poison me. And notice that this is on cooldown still, but it's going to come off cooldown in a second. Okay, I'm going to use that. That'll remove one poison. I'm going to use my skill to remove the others. And I'm going to kill these guys because they are hurting me real bad. Okay. So that's why you want to use your BuffBars quick slots, because you can set them up so that they will show you only what you need to use and only when you need to use them. So we can leave this instance again. Takes a few seconds to leave. A few more seconds to zone in. Here we go. Alright, so in brief, using the BuffBars slider, now let's just bring up the options panel so we can have the options panel up while we're talking. Okay, so the BuffBars effect slider is something you may not want to use. Maybe you do want to use it. I usually have it visible. I don't really use it a whole lot, but there it is. The main thing you want to use is the effect windows, which is these bars here. Those bars are really useful. They'll show you all your buffs. It'll remind you when you need to refresh a buff, much easier than looking at the tiny little icons under your portrait. The most important thing, though, is seeing your debuffs, and your debuffs will appear in a separate group above all your other buffs. You can, at your option, have them appear below all of your buffs. That will let you know when you have a debuff on you without having to stare at the tiny little icons under your portrait. And then I suggest that you set up a second set of effect windows. I called the ones that I set up in this example BuffBars 2. And then BuffBars 2 is going to appear in the middle of the screen, but only when you have a curable debuff applied to you. And that's when you'll know you have to do something about that. And finally, I suggest you set up your quick slot bar. Bring it somewhere that makes sense. I have mine down here just above my other bars. And set up each option, fear, disease, fear, poison, wound, and morale, with some consumable or skill, or both, that will allow you to remove the various effects. And remember that you can have more than one thing that can cure a single effect. For instance, I have disease removal set up for both my skill, knowledge of cures, and the consumable effect that's in my bags. You don't have to do that, but I suggest that you do. You can also set it up for three things. You could set it up so that when for instance, a disease appears, you can use your skill, or the disease removal potion, which is here, or one of these fancy potions that removes a lot of different things. And all three of those will then pop up on your BuffBars quick slot when you get a disease, and you can choose which of the three you want to use. So that concludes our BuffBars tutorial. In the description of the video, I am going to have a link to my .layout files. If you like my layout, you can use that. I'm also going to have a link to BuffBars. Now, BuffBars is a very old plugin that has not been updated by its author in a long time, and so requires multiple patches. I'm going to provide a link to the base plugin, as well as to all the patches. One of the patches I created, and without that patch, the plugin will not work correctly when the motivated buff is active. The other patches do important things as well. You really need to get all the patches. So, for those of you who might have trouble applying patches to the plugin, I also will have a link in the description which will provide you with the fully patched up version of the plugin, which will be much easier for you to install. Once again, this video is not a plugin installation tutorial, but I am going to be providing the fully patched up version of the plugin for you to download from my Dropbox account, just in case you're having trouble with the patching, or you just don't want to bother going through the patching process. And that's about it. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this useful, and I will see you in the next one.